Hey everybody, and welcome back to Bear It In Mind. On this channel we explore psychology so that we can better understand ourselves and others. In previous videos in this series we've explored how our behaviour can be influenced by those around us, known as social influence. And we've particularly considered how it is that the majority can apply pressure to others in their group to change their behaviour. But what about when the reverse happens? What about when the minority influences the majority? How does that happen? In this final video in the series, we're going to explore minority influence and social change. I wonder if you've ever seen this picture before, or this picture. It's March 7th, 1965. We are in Selma, Alabama. A protest is about to take place, a march from Selma to Montgomery, and this march was organised by non-violent activists to demonstrate the desire of African American citizens to exercise their constitutional right to vote. As the march began, state troopers and men from the county attacked the unarmed marchers with clubs and tear gas after they passed over the county line. The event became known as Bloody Sunday. One of the organisers of the event, a lady by the name of Amelia Boynton, was beaten unconscious by law enforcement. The media publicised worldwide a picture of her lying wounded on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Here are courageous people trying to bring about social change. And then we shift from 1965 to January 20th, 2009.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God?
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
What a dramatic social change, from African Americans not even having the ability to vote to Barack Obama as President of the United States of America. In this video, we are going to explore how a minority can influence the majority, and specifically the social influence processes at work in social change. To do this, we're going to consider a current example related very much to the March on Selma in 1965 and the continued struggle in our day. Let's consider together Colin Kaepernick and the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, when we talk about minority influence, this is where one person or a small group of people persuade others to adopt their beliefs, attitudes, or behaviours. And when we talk about social change, this occurs when a whole society adopts a new belief or behaviour which then becomes widely accepted as the norm. Now, there are many factors that go into bringing about social change. Some we've previously considered, like internal locus of control, and factors that can increase or decrease disobedience, like uniform and location. Over the course of this video, we're going to explore 6 additional key factors that can help bring about social change. Number 1, drawing attention. Minorities can bring about social change by drawing the majority's attention to an issue. In the case of Colin Kaepernick, he was the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers in the NFL, having taken his team to the Super Bowl in 2013.
Touchdown! Colin Kaepernick is a 2-point game.
During August 2016, he started to protest against the police brutality towards black people, and Kaepernick worked with a former member of the US Army Special Forces, a guy called Nate Boyer, to find an effective way to voice the protest. They came up with the idea that rather than stand for the national anthem, he would take a knee instead. When Kaepernick took a knee at the next game, a journalist reported on the event, and it soon made national news. Here we can see the first of 6 key elements in social change, drawing attention. Kaepernick had turned the spotlight of the nation onto the issue of systemic racism and police brutality, and done so using peaceful means. As one journalist wrote, Colin Kaepernick was taking a stand by bending a knee. Number 2, cognitive conflict. The minority creates a conflict between what the majority currently believe and the position of the minority. This makes the majority think more deeply about the issues being challenged. Now that Colin Kaepernick had drawn attention to the issue, and in such a prominent way, This began to lead people to think more and question what was going on, and created conflict about whether his behaviour was right or not. The President of the USA at the time felt the need to publicly criticise Colin Kaepernick's actions. One Friday night, in no other place than Alabama, at a rally for a Republican Senate candidate, President Trump called for kneeling players to be fired. The following Sunday, hundreds of players began kneeling, and a full-blown battle with the president was drawn.
The Dallas Cowboys taking their stand by taking a knee before the national anthem, team owner Jerry Jones right in the middle.
Boos can be heard from this sellout crowd in Arizona.
Number 3. Now, bear with me for a moment. Here's some research into minority influence to be aware of first. Serge Moscovici, a Romanian-born French social psychologist, suggested 3 key elements for a minority to impact a majority. Commitment, this is where the minority shows dedication to their beliefs through personal sacrifice. Flexibility, whilst the minority holds strongly to their beliefs, the minority need to show some level of flexibility through accepting compromise rather than being unreasonable. But the main one, the one we're going to focus on here under number 3, is consistency. This is where all the people in the minority group hold to the same beliefs over time. This draws attention to their beliefs and creates uncertainty in the mind of the majority. To research this, Moscovici et al. In 1969 conducted an experiment where participants were shown 36 blue slides of different shades and asked to state what the colour was. There were 2 Confederates, people who were in on the experiment and working for Moscovici. They played the role of the minority, and 4 participants who were the majority. In the first part of the experiment, the 2 Confederates answered green for each of the 36 slides. They were completely consistent in their responses. In the second part of the experiment, they answered green 24 times and blue 12 times. In this case, they were inconsistent in their answers. What Moscovici found was when the Confederates were consistent in their answers, about 8% of participants said the slides were green. When the Confederates answered inconsistently, about 1% of participants said the slides were green. Now, even though this figure of 8% is not huge, it does contrast significantly with only 1% when inconsistent. And when you are the minority trying to bring about change, this small influence, as we will see later, can build momentum. Whilst we're here talking about Moscovici, it is worth making a quick note of the fact that his research has been criticised in a number of ways. Firstly, population validity. His sample that he used in his study consisted of an all-female student sample, which only tells us about the behaviour from this demographic and limits the generalisability of the findings. Secondly, ecological validity. Calling a blue slide green is a rather artificial task and not the sort of real-world social change events like those we have considered. Furthermore, in the real world, when a minority is trying to bring about change, they often know one another and have often devoted their lives to a cause. This isn't often the case with a volunteer student sample who are asked to report the colour of a slide. Anyway, the point here from Moscovici's work is that consistency is key to the minority influencing the majority. Back to Colin Kaepernick. The protests by NFL players were consistent over a 2 to 3 year period, and the larger protests linked with the Black Lives Matter movement is still ongoing and has been consistent in its protests and action. Number 4, the Augmentation Principle. If a minority appears willing to suffer for their views, they are seen as more committed and so are taken more seriously by others. Picking up on Moscovici's key elements for a minority, commitment is where the minority shows dedication to their beliefs through personal sacrifice. In Colin Kaepernick's case, after he took a knee, he lost his career. He has never been signed by another NFL team since. And in the weeks following the first time he took a knee, Colin Kaepernick received numerous death threats. In terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, large numbers of people recently took huge risks when they decided to take to the streets in large crowds to protest systemic racism and police brutality during the COVID-19 pandemic, risking their own health for the larger cause. Number 5, the snowball effect. Minority influence at first usually has a small effect, but this then spreads more widely as more and more people consider the issues being promoted until it reaches a tipping point, at which stage it leads to wide-scale social change. And lastly, number 6, social cryptoamnesia. This is where people have a memory that change has occurred, but don't remember how it happened. Sadly, in terms of the social change that the Black Lives Matter movement is trying to bring about in relation to systemic racism and police brutality, we're not there yet. Unlike previous social change movements in the past, like the suffragette movement, or something relatively simple like recycling, we now take these for granted. They are a given. In fact, we're at a point with these issues where people don't really have a memory of how it happened, unless it's taught in schools. But what about the Black Lives Matter movement and the impact of Colin Kaepernick? Well, we're living in it right now, and it's still ongoing. So in this video, we've considered the 6 contributing factors to bring about social change. Next time you are tempted to think that a single individual or small group can't make a difference, bear in mind how some of the most significant changes in society started from the actions of a minority. And see if you can spot these 6 factors currently at work today in other people around the world who are trying to bring about social change. I hope you found this video and series on social influence helpful. If there are any other areas of psychology that you'd like me to explore, let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.